favor. This is Sharon Florin, who really is my studio mate, but she has been assisting me on all these projects she just reminded me, for 42 years. But she is amazing, very patient. She tells me I pack the shows too much, but I believe everyone can see a lot. And she just sent Ari the gallery tour. So she knew me when we were both very young. And when I started teaching, she knew me before, you two knew me before the Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Yeah, she knew me before the Guggenheim. So this is from a year ago. We couldn't find you a newer one. So these are not all, yeah, these have changed. Oh my God, these have changed a lot. These are good galleries. These are not great. So the best galleries start at 16th Street, and it's not even on there, 16th Street, and goes to 26th Street. The best galleries used to be on 22nd Street and 24th Street, because that's where the Dia Foundation was. This whole thing started as a lark because the Dia Foundation was there. The Dia Foundation is the Dimonials. And then, oh, you know what you should do, Ari? Show them the famous rocks by Joseph Beuys. The Dia Foundation commissioned Joseph Beuys to do rocks on the street together with teeny little trees, like bonsai size. Oh, you're shaking your head. You knew that, Sylvia. I'm happy you knew that. So when we started, that's what we saw down there. And the Dia Foundation was the anchor that made it happen. And then some of the very smart galleries bought their spaces because they were all kicked out of Chelsea when the prices, out of Soho when the prices became very high. And so they were very smart. The people that bought were Hauser and Wirth, David Zwirner, Gagosian, Barbara Gladstone, Paula Cooper, Matthew Marks. All of them were smart enough to buy. Who's clapping for Paula Cooper? Deb, I don't. They're very good dealers. I want everyone to ask questions. Because I really love teaching that way. I just told Ari it was very special for me today. 3 of the galleries I went to and one of the dealers I bumped into said, I can't believe after your Phillips show, you're still doing gallery tours. And I said, I love doing gallery tours. And they said, well, you don't have to. And I said, I love looking at other artists and I will continue doing this. Ad Me'ava Esrim. I don't think it takes away from me as an artist to talk about the validity of other artists. So I never show an artist I don't respect, but not everyone I love. I don't know if you guys are going to love him, but I have to be honest. We're seeing Walton Ford. He's not in my top 10 artists, but he's become so important recently that he's now with Gagosian. I first saw him at Casman Gallery. I mean, you'll see the work. They're huge, very illustrative watercolors. They're technically brilliant, but we'll discuss that later. Does anyone know Walton Ford? I'm so curious. Wow. So I can't see anyone on the page 4. Wow. Can you ask to write in if they know him? I'm going to show you a short video of his that's fascinating. He's a very interesting guy, but he knows how famous he is now. Okay, we're up to 93. I'm waiting to get to 100 to really start, but I might start anyway. Ari, so let's start and let me explain to you what I do. I weave back and forth. I'm trying to show you artists in relationship to each other. So if you keep these sheets of mine and I have to thank Sharon, she already left for the day, but I drive her a little nuts. I keep changing the order because in my mind, I want you to understand why each artist enhances the next artist. Do you understand what I mean? It's not linear. It's very conceptual. So we're starting with Oscar. So let's start with David Zwirner. And I write the addresses here. So if you ever come to New York, you'll see where they are. Now, originally I was going to go around the world, but I just told Ari that because COVID is a little better now, I've been going to these galleries again. And I like, if you ask me questions about texture and surface, next week I'm showing you one of my favorite artists, and I'm so happy Rosa is on. It's Carmen Herrera, and it's her work from the 70s, from the 1970s, when you could have bought that work for $2,000. Now she's considered a Gadol Hador, which means like one of the great masters. And I have to say, I've loved her work for 20 years. And now she's compared to very favorably with Ellsworth Kelly. And I'm going to show you the shows next to each other. All right, so let's start.
Okay, so which gallery are we going to first? Just tell
Are we
people.
starting with David Zwirner? It says here, Oscar.
Okay, hold on. By the way, everybody, I dropped into the chat the map that I showed for the Chelsea galleries, the old map, and then the outline for today. So you have everything.
Sharon is going to try and find, she said to me next week, she'll try and find you a new map. I couldn't find a new map, but we'll look for one. So the Turner Prize is considered one of the best prizes in the world. So this is the 3-minute. I'm trying to keep very short videos.
I think I describe myself as an artist, and as a practice that is for us. The hunger to learn and to become aware of our history was probably the biggest thing that I could have done as a kind of foundation. And therefore, I feel completely comfortable from having a painting studio and engaging fully in painting to turning up at a place and start doing a performance in a car park. It's a combination of material intelligence, which is both, one can say, an advantage and disadvantage. Because you probably have an awareness or an idea as to what will work or what might not work. So then you might stop yourself, and therefore it's always important to be aware of that threshold and the leap. So in a way, kind of undoing yourself, and to be aware that there is, of course, a Western art history that I have learned that goes in tandem with art history. And I think being aware of that is a tremendous tool so that you can also discard it, so that you can also feel comfortable making the audacious leaps that I think that I want to make for my practice. Ultimately, that one cannot infiltrate a system, whether it is a social system or any system of any sort, if you do not have the information. So in a way, of course, being nominated is an incredible honor, but it's also an opportunity to undo. Drawing is also the catalyst of my own practice. For example, my paintings, there's a series of paintings called Catalyst. Ironically, started from drawing. I don't see them as paintings, I see them as drawings. I see them as physical discharge of energy and physical anxiety. There was this collision of wishes, which is, I like drawing, I like mark making. How can I marry that and marry my desire for these things to exist within the context of the traditional? And I think that was the birth of, let's say, my painting practice. It's incorporating the physical with the romanticism and the allure of painting. There's a paradox. There are kind of conflicting desires that come together, and there is these tensions that are created. For example, I like to use, the best linen possible, or I like to use, high quality oil paints, but yet the way I process them within painting installations, within this sculptural object, is to undermine that importance. And to me, that is where it becomes a kind of confrontation with, let's say, an audience or a space. And therefore I have faith in the ability for that object to inflict some kind of impact on the encounter with the audience.
So I start my panels so you can hear the artist's voice. You can stop that. I do this very consciously. I want you to hear artists talk. He's very articulate. People always say to me, "Are artists articulate?" Every artist I've ever met is articulate, some more than others, but you understand how he thinks about his work. Now, in the show, when you go to the show, you'll notice that when you get up close to the surface, there are parts of dirt that was on his floor that becomes part of the piece. He loves that. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. If anyone knows the answer, I'll wait a second. Anyone know a German artist who does that, who had a show at the Museum of Modern Art, and every week they had to sweep underneath the pieces? Anyone know? It was Ansel Kiefer. Ansel Kiefer did. You're shaking your head. Oh, Eleni, I'm so happy you're here again. Eleni and I worked together in New York. She's a wonderful artist too. So when you had to sweep the straw from the floor every month, and it was very powerful. It was every week. What am I talking about? Every month. So some artists don't mind if some of their material falls off. So let's look at the show. I was blown away. You walked into the space. The smell of oil was so thick that when I came in with my students, they went like, "Don't you get a headache?" And I go, "No, I love that smell." So we're not going to read. There they are. So that is done with something called oil stick. And you can see that he sewed the material in the background together. So you can see the lines. Ari, do me a favor. Look on the right side. You see where that orange zigzag is next to the blue? There's a line going right through, and that's a sewn line because you can't get, no, not there. Move over. No, the other direction, the other direction, the other direction. Keep going, right there. Now go further down, a little further down, right there, right there. Now go up, up, right there. Right there across the page. You'll see right there. You see there's a line where he sewed. So you can see the material underneath. There are two pieces of canvas that are sewn. So it's just a little line going through. So let's look at them up close. Now, what do I find so interesting about them? They are mark making. They're all marks. And you look at this and you say to yourself like, oh my God. See, it says oil, oil stick, graphite, spray paint, and canvas and linen. What is the difference between canvas and linen? Excellent question. Canvas is cotton, linen is linen. It's shotness. It's a bit of a problem, but it's a painting, so you're not wearing it, so don't worry. But what I love is that he's not scared to spray. You see that blue all the way on the right, that light blue that's got right there? That is very flat. You see the graphite on the top, all the way on the top, on the right, a little further up, right there. That's graphite, and that's oil paint. And then you get on the top, the big orange and red area is a thick oil stick. It's maybe an inch long, and you squish it against the surface, and the marks are very radical. Now, you might say to me, Toby, I mean, he's so young. Why is he looking at people like Joan Mitchell? And I'll say, because he likes Joan Mitchell. And you'll say to me, but how is he adding to the dialogue? And I say to you, Joan Mitchell's were much more, in essence, beautiful. And he's looking for raw energy. These are very energetic paintings. But I'm happy that it's staying on the screen for a minute, because if you can see, he's divided up the canvas into a square. It's like a line going in down and middle. And then you saw the way he was showing you in the studio, he was flipping over. That's it, beautiful. So you see that he's using the whole canvas, but he's breaking it up into sections, and he does that very, very often. Let's go to the next one. And that is what the gallery is now doing for you. They're showing you blow-ups, and now they're showing you scale. Do you understand? So now the galleries are trying to teach you that you might not be able to get to the gallery, but I'm going to show you. And it says signed and dated on verso. Some artists don't, I'm one of them. I never sign my paintings in the front. I want it in the back. You would say to me, well, why does he have to do that? And I'm saying, because he doesn't want a signature on the front. It's very simple. So these are not huge, but they're big. They're 75 by 65. So now this is my favorite piece in the show, because it looks like nighttime, and it looks like you're looking through trees, and you either see a fire truck or you see a barn. Do you see that as your eyes get used to it? You see that it's multi-layered. I hope your I can see it on my screen. I have a big screen. It's not, I love that surface. Like, look at, you know, you have to let the underpainting dry well, because if not, that pink and that yellow and that orange would not stay that rich if it wasn't totally dry. Why? Because the black oil stick is so thick, if it was wet, it would get ruined. And do you remember when he's taking out his canvases and putting them away and back up, he waits until sections are dry to do the next level. So when you ask me, look at the date, look at the date, it says 2020, 2022. It shows you that he worked on the painting for 2 years. Historically, many artists do that. I do that too, by the way. Some people only put the finished date on. Some people put the date on when it started until when it ends. There's not a right way. That's a taste issue. Let's go to the next one. We're going to go through every one, but I'm not going to spend as much time. I picked my favorites. There's one more that I'm madly in love with. Now, somebody might say to me, Toby, please, this looks like my grandchild or my child could do this. And I'm saying, your grandchild or child might do this once. They're not going to be able to do this 10 times. And you'll say, yes, they can. Yes, they can. And I'm going to say, I'm happy for your grandchild. Put up their work on the wall. And there's nothing wrong. I kept a lot of my kids' work on the wall. But what he's doing, he's using it's called automatic writing, but he's using it in a way to really have a conversation with us. Let's go to the next. We don't have to look at all the details. We'll go to the next one. And now this one again is beautiful. You're going to notice something. Does anyone notice that school bus? Anyone notice that? Do you see that? I hope you find it interesting because I love that. So he plays with you about looking through a forest. Look at that beautiful blue sky. Look at the marks in the front and look at the green and the red. And then look at the way he's playing with you by giving you information that's in the background. But he's still, look, oh God, thank you, Ari. Look how beautiful that looks. Again, if you don't like it, we can still be friends. It's not, there's something called taste. You don't have to like everything that I like, but now you see how big it is. It's a beautiful painting. Go down. I want to do one more that I'm just madly in love with. Keep going. That's the one I want to talk to you about. So this made me think of Water Lilies by Monet. So my in-laws, my wife's parents, had a beautiful house in Canada. People go to summer houses right outside Toronto in Ontario. And my in-laws had this beautiful little house around a lake. And you could not see totally across the lake, but you see these red houses there. And when I would sit on the dock at night, you would see this beautiful, huge sky and these little houses on the other side of the lake, and you would see reflections of the sky and the little houses in the water. And if it was nighttime, if you had trees in front of you, think about Cézanne. You remember, if you know anything about Cézanne, he would very often paint under a tree on one side and look to the other side. I think that's a master. I don't even know what to say. I love it so much. But again, it's a taste issue. You don't have to like him. And then we'll keep going down. I think there's some, and then you can explore. This is all because of COVID. So now you can see everything. All right, let's go to the next show. You're allowed to tell me later if you liked them or you didn't like them, and we get along well. And you can look at the mark making here. That's what the gallery now does. The gallery now does stuff like this. You can see in the bottom, you can see they're showing you. So if you can't be there to buy it, you can at least see it. And they're showing you how he makes marks. All right, now we're going to the next show. Can I see a raise? Can you just put in the chat yes or no? How many of you liked it? Anyone like it? I hope. Anyone hate it? Down. Oh, I'm very impressed that you admitted you didn't like it. What didn't you like about it, Judy? I can't hear you.
We have to unmute people. So Depend who is trying to
Judy,
speak.
very nice, Judy. I love that she gave. I love
Well,
people that say the truth. Judy,
Before Judy shares, which Judy? Is it Judy Bagal?
yeah.
Before we unmute, people ask, what is automatic writing?
Oh my
see
God,
that?
thank you. Don't be shy. This is why I teach. Automatic writing means you just let go. Who's the most famous that did it? Cy Twombly. He's the most automatic writing. Also, Jackson Pollock did automatic, but he did it more with dripping. People talk about automatic writing. Oh, another nice Jew, Franz Klein did automatic writing. Automatic writing means you don't think so much, you just go for it.
People say they generally liked it. They wouldn't necessarily put it in their house.
By the way, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either.
And then, of course, people don't have big walls. You'd have to have a very big house for this artist. Phyllis loved it, so it's good. You have a variety.
But I want to hear from Judy why she didn't. I'm very interested in why people don't like things. Judy, why didn't you like
give Judy 1 minute to share. Go ahead, Judy.
1 minute.
It just didn't do anything for me.
Did it make you feel like a child could do it? That's the big criticism. with
No,
it.
I just found everything just very annoying. And I really, and I love modern art. It's just
Good.
I don't know if it was the colors or what. It just didn't get to me.
Good. I'm very proud of you. Okay, let's go to the next person.
So before we do that another question is, do these young artists generally come out of one school? In other words,
No.
is there a particular school where you would
Well,
find
in
many
London,
of those using-
come in 2 weeks and you're going to see Ariel and he is in the best school in London. So in America, the best schools are Yale, Hunter. I went to Hunter. Hunter is considered one of the best. RISD, Cal Arts, Chicago Institute. There's certain schools that SVA, there's certain schools that people come to the student exhibitions to try and catch somebody new. I tell you this, Ari, all the time. There's no trick. You just have to be lucky. I have said this a million times, and I'll say it for 1,000,001 times. I have never seen an artist who's made it very big that doesn't have something there. I've met many artists who have something there that don't make it. Now, some artists are a flash in the pan, but I mean, it's very diverse. But no.
So
it's
a few
really
other quick
working
questions.
hard.
I mean, I guess difference between artists and actors there are a lot of actors that have nothing there. In other words, they could be wonderful actors, but when you talk to them, really relatively empty up there. But artists, I think what you're saying is another layer going on if they're doing serious art.
I have to change my mind. I shouldn't have said that. They're businessmen artists. I don't speak ill of artists, but I'm going to say one of the artists who I think is pure business is Jeff Koons. He happens to be a genius businessman. I mean, a genius. I've shown his work because sometimes he hits a home run, bases loaded, but he, you know what? He does have something there. It's just not what I want to talk about, but yes, you know what? I go back with what I said. Yes, I have not met an artist who doesn't have something there. It's not always compelling, but yes, there's something there.
And there's a question in general, when you go with these galleries, you have to make an appointment or you can just walk in?
You walk in, but you have to wear a mask now. And today I had to sign in for some of my students because one of them wasn't wearing a mask and they gave her a mask. Before COVID, it was very different. You can always go in. Sometimes they don't like groups, but they like me because I don't take a cut. I go to galleries and if I take a client there, the client pays me, not the gallery. I've never taken a penny from a gallery. I'm called an advisor. An advisor advises, and the person I'm taking will take care of me later.
And the last question, I know you dislike it, but people do ask to understand the range of how much the pieces that we're looking at, like these artists, what are they selling for these days? And if you're showing to us
thousands of dollars.
So what you're telling people is rather donate to CSP hundreds of thousands right now.
No, most of the artists I'm showing you are very famous. There are one or two that are under 100,000, but usually they're over 100,000 to $1 million.
Yeah. If any of you go and buy a piece, just send me a picture of you with your CSP hat with your piece. So
if you're really serious and you give me a call, I will go with you and I can save you some money. What you would pay me is way less than I can get you off but again, I have to be honest with you. Some galleries are looking for people that have amazing collections. That's a fact. And I have to say, when I go with the dealer eventually, I'm going to ask my dealer to look for the collectors that buy because they love, not as an investment. There are galleries that don't care and will sell to the best investor, in quotes. Some people, I'm sorry to say, I'm embarrassed to even say this, there are people that buy and put it into a vault right away and don't look at it for 10 years. I find that so creepy. And don't ask about the Warhol sale because it gets me upset. So if you think it's worth all that money, Mazel Tov, happy birthday. Don't discuss it with me. That to me is about pure business. That's not about art.
Last question before we go to our next. So our next gallery is Jack Shainman Gallery, correct?
Yes.
Are you competing when you're going to buy with like museums? Do they go buy at galleries?
Yeah, of course. The people you're competing with are the 10, and I'm not going to give you their names. They're 10 or 20 mega collectors. I'm very lucky. I'm in one of them. I'll mention their names because they're not alive anymore. When Herb and Dorothy Vogel bought Herb and Dorothy, there's a film. Google the film Herb and Dorothy. He was a postman. She was a librarian. They bought my work 30 years ago. They paid $100 a month. And when my then dealer, whose name I won't mention, said to me, called me up and said, God, some ridiculous people came in and said, can they pay $100 a month? And I said to her, I won't mention her name because I don't believe in Lashon Hara. I said, it wasn't a guy who looks like a homeless person. She goes, how'd you know? Does he bother you? I said, is his name Herb Vogel? And she goes, has he bothered you at home? I said, so-and-so. They're one of the best collectors in the world. They're going to give their stuff to a museum. And they eventually gave everything to the Smithsonian. And it was worth tens of millions of dollars. And they bought what they loved, and they bought only small pieces. So Google Herb and Dorothy Vogel. You'll see it's a short film. They're hysterical. But there's some mega collectors in America and Europe and in the Arab Emirates. I mean, there's some major collectors that you're competing against the biggest collectors. And some artists have such a long waiting list that it's very hard to buy a piece.
Okay, so we're going to go now to the next gallery. We'll get it on the screen for you. And I think there's a start, correct, here?
Yeah, this is a brilliant short video. I love he's a mamish, nicest guy. It's 6 minutes, but it's worth every second. Some people told me it's the best video they ever saw.
Okay, here we go.
Having you introduce yourself a bit and tell us a little bit about your relationship to clay.
Okay, my name is Akinsanya Kambon, and I was born Mark Teamer in Sacramento, California in 1946. The first memory I have is in Del Paso Heights. That's where we lived. My mother had bought a lot in Del Paso Heights, and then she bought a boxcar for $200. And she had it moved to her lot, and she put some cement blocks underneath it so it would stand up, and had a door and some windows cut in the boxcar. And that was a house. I was going to Lincoln Junior High School, which is right around the corner across the street from the Crocker. And I never knew what a museum was. I'd never seen a museum. I never heard of a museum. So at lunchtime, we would always take a break and we'd go off campus, off Lincoln, and we'd cross the street, and we'd go down to the Crocker and hop the fence. They had a fence out there. And one day, somebody said, let's go inside the museum because the guy that guards the door is gone. The man that stands up there, they had a security officer there. So we all ran in and we running. And I ran in and I'm running, and all of a sudden I looked up and I saw this great big old painting, and I stopped and I couldn't move. And I'm looking at the painting and I'm saying, oh my God, look at this. I couldn't believe it. And the guy said, come on, Mark, come on. We gotta go, he's gonna catch us. And I'm in a daze. I was like mesmerized by this painting, and I'm trying to figure out, how does anybody paint like this? I couldn't believe it. So I got caught and I got kicked out. But all while he was taking me out, I'm still looking at the paintings because I couldn't believe it.
And one of your teachers along the way too was one of our Sacramento artists, Gregory Condos, right?
Yeah, Greg Condos. I had a class from him at City College, and I really loved his class. And I had a teacher named Al Bird at City College, and he was the one that first introduced me to raku. And why I'm so impressed with it is because When you look at the work, sometimes you get these metallic lusters. The first thing is you create an image, and then you take it out of the fire once it's bisque, and you put the glazes wherever you want them, different colors. And once the glazes are on the piece, then you take it back to do the raku firing. And usually when you do a raku firing, you have a lot of people all firing their piece. And the way we do it, sometimes we have women and they're dancing and the drummers are drumming and the women are dancing. And you can feel the spirit in the air of what's taking place with this whole raku process. Then everybody backs up and you open the kiln and you start taking the pieces out, putting them in smoking cans. And the smoke mixes with the glazes and causes some type of a chemical reaction. And that's what gives you all the metallic lusters. I like to use eucalyptus leaves, sawdust, newspaper, hay, all of these different combustibles. The more of them you put in it, you never know what you're gonna get. I've looked at a lot of African spirituality, and a lot of the African heroes, if someone is special as a person, he takes the form of a deity. And I like to incorporate the things that I learned into my own work.
And you've also traveled pretty extensively too.
Well, that's my biggest influence, is my travels in Africa. I think I've been to Africa 14 times. And I always go to do research, and I do research on African art. And I live with the Bambara people in Mali. I live with the Mende in Sierra Leone. And every tribal group has a totally different culture. Their art is totally different. An equestrian figure is a symbol of power, because in Africa, you don't have a horse unless you're a powerful person. And some of the greatest equestrians are the ones related to the Buffalo Soldiers, and those were the Bornu cavalrymen.
There's a lidded vessel called the Greatest Shame.
What it's speaking to, it's speaking to slavery. The reason the turtle is leading the man is because the turtle is supposed to be wise, because they live for hundreds of years. So we must follow the lead of the wisest among us, which would be the turtle. I would hope that people just come to embrace a better understanding of history and understand the humanity in people and how we are all humans. So many people have a superiority complex in this country. They're not going to admit anything, and that's why I call it the shame, the greatest shame, because a lot of people are so ashamed. They don't want to look at that shame, because they know it did, and they all quick to say, well, I didn't have nothing to do with that. Well, I know you didn't, but you got to understand how some people that were affected by it were devastated spiritually, culturally. They were devastated, and some people don't get over it. I just think you should understand and realize that some of the ideas that your ancestors passed on to you, you still have them. Even the Crocker family here were abolitionists. They were abolitionists, and they fought against slavery. And I think that's something that people should know about and bring up. And I look at that and I think about, well, damn, and finally I got an exhibit here at the Crocker, and that's a miracle, because I never thought I would ever have an exhibit at this museum. I never thought that. People say that some things you got to be a genius to do something. Everybody's a genius. You know that? Everybody's a genius. All you have to do is have the desire and willing to struggle at it and try to learn it. You can learn it.
I love that. I hope you did too. So let's look at a show now. You saw the works in the show already now. That's not one of the works.
If you struggle to lose weight, you must see this.
So now we're going to go to the exhibition that is brilliant. I wish I could take you here. It just closed. I feel like crying. It was so beautiful. You saw the works in there, and now you'll see the display. We'll go through it quickly because I'm so nervous about time. Do I have until 5? When do I have until, Ari? I always worry. I thought we gave me more time.
That's a good question. We started at 12:30. So I think you have, I have to look up. It's either an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half, but I will.
Make it an hour and a half, an hour and a half. Don't say an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. I'm using every minute. Let's go quickly, look through the show. And I love what he said. He talked about art the way I believe art should be talked about. Let's just look at the images. And I'm sure you realize all the sculptures were his face. I mean, I'm sure you, if you didn't notice it, then I'm telling you, it's a secret. But look at that. And I don't know, I love that he taught you about raku. If you're interested in raku, Google raku. I studied with Karen Carnes and Susan Peterson. I love the way he talks about a fire pit and the glazing comes out different. Let's just look at it quickly because we have so much to do. And he spoke brilliantly.
Hey, Toby, the eyes
yes.
in all of his statues are actually, he doesn't paint them. He keeps them open, correct?
You know why? Thank you for asking, because otherwise it would crack. You have to have openings. So he leaves the eyes open. So that's a hole going in. Because with raku firing, you see there are always open areas that the smoke can go through it. Very good question. You get an A+. Let's keep going. I'll show you my favorite piece in the show. I love that one too.
And so, and how long has he been known? Like some of these are newer artists. How long, when did he kind of, when was he
he's been
discovered in a certain way?
respected for at least 20 years, but right now, happily, look at that one. I love that one. Right now, people of color are getting their fair shot. You know what I mean? They're all, everyone's a great artist, but right now it's beautiful in the world that people of color and women and the gay community and Latin American and Cuban, look at that. I love that one. A lot of people are getting their turn. So it's been look at that. I just love all of these.
How big are these?
These are small. Thank you for asking. These are maybe 23 by 9 by 10 inches. I always ask questions. Don't be shy. That's what I love that one again.
And is this a New York based artist?
No,
Does he
California.
Would you know if is he like out here in
yeah, he said
LA?
it. I forgot where it is. I'm bad at remembering things. If you want to, let's go to his bio. This is a learning moment. And these are wall pieces. His wall pieces are beautiful also. And there's a metal behind it that keeps it on the wall. Let's just go to the bio because I don't remember dates. That's one of my shortcomings. Keep going. Born in, wait a minute, there it is. Born in, he was in the U.S. Marines, Cambon, and Pan-African. Keep going where he lives. In the very end, it usually says where they live. Here, he lives in Sacramento, California.
It says he lives and works in Long Beach.
Yeah, in Long Beach, but I'm saying he was born in Sacramento.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Long Beach is right up the street here.
And he teaches at that college.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Okay, local people.
Awesome guy.
Got to go meet him.
Good. If I come out there, I'll gladly go with you because I'm a huge fan of his.
It's very impressive. A lot of people are emailing how much, texting and sharing.
And didn't you all love his, but he is so modest. He's the type of guy, I love him. No nonsense. I think he is very interested in his backgrounds, and I think he's brilliant.
There was a question about going to galleries. How do you go to a gallery and actually meet the artist? Is that like reserved for?
You don't.
Okay.
If you're lucky enough to have bought a piece, they'll invite you to the opening, and that's when you meet the artist. And then if you buy enough work, you get to go to dinner with the artist. So since I will tell you, Leonardo Drew is one of my best friends. So every time he has an opening, I'm invited to dinner, even though I've never bought anything. You get invited if you're a friend, an art historian, a curator, or a collector. Most of the people in the room at a dinner for an artist are collectors. Or
do you, Tobi Kahn, if you wanted to go to an opening, can you get in, or is that even hard for you?
I can get in anywhere I want. That's not a problem. Dinner is different. Dinner, if I know the artist, yes. If not, no. I know I get invited to any. I never had a problem with getting to any opening that I wanted.
Yeah, these are pieces I think you really have to. All art you've seen in person, but these in particular, they're so detail oriented. It just cannot.
Very detail oriented. Very detail oriented. And I wanted you to see two very different artists. And I started with both of them very articulate, but very different way of feeling. Now, the next artist we're going to is, and you can do this on your own afterwards, is somebody who uses all found material. So I wanted to go from very classically trained to educated with raku to somebody who uses material that is Nari Ward. Let's look at that. And then we're going to get to, very different. I'm so excited.
Okay, so just to give us an idea, because we're going from gallery to gallery. You say these are very tightly packed galleries. I mean, we're going from 533rd West 19th Street to 524 West 24th Street, and this one is 501 West 24th Street.
Across the street. But I could stay on 24th Street all day. I'm showing you shows that like my students who come with me in New York laugh. And like today, we were on certain streets and they said, why aren't we going in here? It's right next door. I said, because it doesn't fit in what I want to do today. We'll see it next week or in 2 weeks. So I plan a lecture about what I want you all to see next to each other. Stephen, good. I'm so happy that you guys are there together. I count my numbers and now you're 2 people. So thank you. So I love this. This is at the Contemporary Museum in Houston. It was a few years ago, but now you'll hear him talk. It's 4 minutes. I pick the right lectures for you to hear. Let's go to that.
Nari Ward's We the People contains nearly 20 works in a variety of media. Sculpture, paintings, and other objects that were made over the 25-year span of his career. Ward emigrated with his family to New York when he was a young man. One of the really important and formative moments for Ward was when he had a residency at the Studio Museum in Harlem. It's one of the very first times that he began to very actively accumulate objects. These are objects that are oftentimes recycled from the streets. Everything from shoelaces to baseball bats to bricks. Items that are very common and that most of us are touching on a daily basis. We the People is made of nearly 4,000 shoelaces that have been drilled and individually
We're going to see that piece later
into the wall to form the outline of the words We the People, of course, from the U.S. Constitution.
This is one
Amazing
of his most
Grace
famous
was
pieces.
a piece that Ward made in 1992-93. It consists of literally hundreds of baby carriages, strollers that he found across the streets in Harlem and in other places. The strollers that are in the very center are strollers that won't stand on their own. They're used to kind of prop each other up, and fire hose is used to kind of link them together, and you indeed get to walk over a kind of pathway through the work that's made out of other pieces of fire hose. One hears Mahalia Jackson singing Amazing Grace. Ward talked about being able to give the piece a sense of uplift, of taking something that could initially appear quite dark, maybe even somber, and giving it a different emotional valence. There are refugee crises that are happening everywhere. Those are certainly very relevant to the kind of work that Ward is presenting. Exodus was made by taking bits of fire hose, building those up by kind of screwing them together around cardboard boxes. He then set fire to the cardboard boxes, effectively burning the inside out. He then took those structures and filled them back up with objects that he found on the streets, sweaters, blankets, children's toys, and put them together, arrayed them out in kind of lanes. And when these parcels are all kind of accumulated together, they start to look like suitcases and things that people who are in transit from one place to another might be bringing along with them. Those lanes also are punctuated with a large object in the back, which is made by taking other pieces of the fire hose and twisting them up and screwing it onto itself. It creates effectively a large mandala almost that is itself nearly 900 pounds. These are oftentimes open stories, things can be read in a multiplicity of ways. It leaves space for viewers to be able to bring their own information and to be able to kind of complete the story in some sense.
Okay, now we're going to the exhibition that's on right now. Quite a few of the pieces in there are in there. So by the way, at the University of Houston, they just bought a major piece of mine. So I'm very excited. It's a 45-foot long. They didn't buy it. They were given it by Jane Blaffer Owen. So this is in the downstairs of the gallery. And you see they drilled holes into the wall and they put "We the People" in the text of the Constitution. What he's trying to do is teach you how to think about a narrative in a very different way. I love his work. Let's go to the next. So this is on 2 floors, a proclamation. So on the you go down the stairs and you see all these pieces. And the galleries have started doing inquire, which means you'll see now this inquire how much it is. So it gives you, this is the piece that I fell in love with. And that's why I picked him today. So these are made out of nails and wire mesh. And when you get up close, I'm telling you, it is so breathtaking. So why did I put this next to the last artist? Because the last one was done with raku, that you can't see how it's done. And here it's done with all material that's standard. But I wanted you to look this in relationship to Oscar also. Oscar uses oil stick and spray paint and graphite. These are non-traditional art materials. And I don't even know what to say. It's so beautiful. I don't know if you like it, but I love it. And this gallery is very known for artists who are interested in surface. So that's a beautiful image. And there you see again, look at this one. Oh my God, it looks like you're looking up at the sky. They're just, I think they're just beautiful. And you can read underneath here, you can see where it says here, copper sheet, copper nails, and darkening patina. A patina means you do this on bronzes, you heat up a material. Oh, there you can see I'm working, where he puts things down on the surface, and that's how he makes his marks. It's a lot of spray paint. And you can see he's dressed, so you can see it. All right, you got it. We're not going through more. That's all we're seeing right now because we could see the installation shots or many things, but I want you to see more shots. I'm trying to show you as many artists as possible. Now we're going to the guy that everyone loves. I'm curious if you're going to love him. We're seeing the short video of him. And this is his interview on PBS. It's 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Let's look at it and then we'll see his show.
Spectacular features painter Walton Ford, whose work examines our relationship to animals in the wild, who, as he puts it, would rather be left alone. This episode is part of our ongoing arts and culture series, Canvas.
I make very large watercolors. Half the time you're at the zoo, you're saying, oh man, those things are a lot weirder looking than I thought, or that's a lot bigger than I thought it was, or those are smaller than I remember them. So I put them right in your face. When you go to the show, you really do feel that. Everybody gets a little overwhelmed when they're faced with one of these things. Growing up in the suburbs, I felt like everything was manicured. I had a fantasy about being immersed in the wild. And going to the Museum of Natural History, I would lose myself in those dioramas. And I would bring a sketchbook even when I was a little kid and draw the animals in the museum dioramas and just lose myself in that. That's the first stuff that I did. That's the stuff that came out from inside of me. That was what was there. Then I went to art school. It didn't feel cool. It's easy to have contempt for what you're really good at. And what I was really good at was drawing and painting in a rather traditional way, and also thinking and relating to animals in the natural world. The art world had no place for somebody who was making work like this. After I got out of Rhode Island School of Design trying to be a sort of artist that I wasn't, and I returned to the stuff that I did when I was a kid, that's actually when things started really going well for me. I look at my work as a sort of meditation on the sort of cultural history of our relationship with animals, especially animals that would rather be left alone. Because my subject matter can be grim, the best paintings I make have a sort of dark humor in them. Sir Richard Burton, the African explorer, kept a collection of monkeys. He gave them all human roles, anthropomorphic roles. I deliberately altered the behavior of the monkey to accommodate Richard Burton's twisted view of how he was training these monkeys and learning their language. And so those paintings could be as heavy or as light as you want them to be because they are amusing to look at. I have a series of paintings I've been working on for many years about a female Black Panther that escaped from the Zurich Zoo in 1933. She was loose in the Swiss countryside in the dead of winter for like 10 weeks. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for stories that are so much better than stuff that I could make up. And then I'm making stuff up from that place. My name is Walton Ford, and this is my brief but spectacular take on the imagined animal.
So now we're going to go to the show that's at the most powerful gallery still in the world, named Gagosian. But you'll look at the work. They're technically brilliant. They're watercolors. They're behind glass, because when you work on watercolors, you have to put it behind glass because they're very fragile. They're usually under non-reflective glass, and they're pH balanced. So in other words, so when the light gets to it, you don't have to worry as much. But his technical ability is breathtaking. I don't even know what to say. He writes a little about what they are and their history on the pieces. But if you walk through the gallery, you'll see how huge they are. They're really big. And these are some of his other pieces. The King of the Jungle, I talked about that. But let's go, where's the other ones? Installation views, works. You can go to works or installation views. So now you'll get a close-up of it, and you press the little arrow on the side. That's my favorite piece in the show. That is huge. And when you look at the feathers, they're spectacularly painted, and they're watercolor gouache on ink. Let's go to the next one. That's another. I mean, listen, all I can say is they're technically brilliant, and you can see the dates. It was started it was originally, where he got it from was 1833, but it's in 2020. Let's go to the next. I want to hear so much what you guys think of it, more than I want to talk about it. That's the runaway favorite. That's what I got in the mail. That's what I was sent to try and bring my groups there. And that's another one. There he's talking about how scientists were talking about measuring the brains of monkeys. And that's very funny. I mean, he's a very funny guy. I don't know what else to say.
Have you met him?
No. I mean, yes. I went to one of his openings because my students begged me to take them there. He was unbelievably nice to my students. And he signed it was a Kazan gallery. That's another beautiful one. This reminded me of one of my favorite movies ever. I forgot what it's called. It's about this kid whose family dies, and he's stuck on a boat with a lion. I forgot the name of the movie. Great movie. So I met him. He's not
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi.
Thank you, Nancy Kaplan.
Thank you, Nancy. So look at the video when he goes back to his school and they do an hour video of him. It's on the link.
Did your students like his work?
I wouldn't have taken them if they didn't like him. They loved it. They begged me to take them, and they know I could get into the opening. So I got to the opening at that gallery 5 years ago, and I took 6 of my Chinese students who were obsessed with him because they couldn't believe how technically brilliant he was. And by the way, technically brilliant. My question is, I'm happy if you love the work. I don't know what he's adding to the dialogue of art. So I respect it from 1 to 10, an 11. But I always question, I love Audubon. I would buy an Audubon. In fact, I own a big Audubon book. I love Audubon. I'm always curious what an artist brings to the conversation. And I think that's very important. But do I admire him? Yes. But I don't want to go further.
There was
than
a
that.
question about what's interesting. I mean, you show us completely different artists today, and every time you take us to artists, we see. I mean, I know that's your intent, and
That is my intent.
You kind of put them back to back, so different.
Yes.
And everyone likes different kind of artists, and but some artists, I think Leonardo never has a name on his art, correct? But this guy has a name on every piece of art. He gives it a name, and
that's what his work is about. That's an excellent question. I think he loves, in fact, he said it. He loves Audubon. He loves going to museums of natural history. And you know what I would put him in a show with? And I think people are going to laugh at me. I would put him in a show with one of my favorite living photographers named Sugimoto. Sugimoto, I think I showed them to you guys. He goes into wax museums and he does copies, and he goes into, thank you for shaking your head, Bob, I love you. You're a good man. When you go into museums and you go into Museum of Natural History and you see these, forgot what they're called, when you have animals in their existence. Diorama. So if I were curating a show, I would do a show of the two of them and just of those images of live animals and his dioramas. I would love to hear people's reactions. But what interests me more about Sugimoto is that he is telling us something. And what is he telling us? He's telling us we go into a museum of natural history or we go into a wax museum and we're not actually looking. And he's saying, look at what you're missing. So anyway, listen, I wouldn't have showed you Walton Ford if I didn't think he's really gifted. I will.
So 2 notes. Rona says spectacular watercolors. As an artist who mostly uses watercolor, he is definitely the top of watercolor artists.
Yes,
from her perspective.
not even a question.
And Deb Schubach loves the paintings, and that he what he has to say about it's a big word, I can't even say his forget it, wild animals, bringing them to human qualities, I guess, his anthropomorphic abilities.
Right.
Okay.
So now we're going to the next artist, very different again. And I am trying to teach, so I want you to see very different things. Don't think like I don't have a brain. I have a brain. Let's go. Very different, but equally smart. We're not seeing all 10 minutes. I know that. I'm watching my time with you.
Munch's scenographic works tap into the rich tradition of painting. Munch paints enigmatic and vibrant works using starkly divisional compositions and often works in extensive series that gradually evolve over time. The canvases carry irregular intensities of detail, line, foreground and background. A sense of repetition breaks down the figuration, creating visual mantras. The Seven, wrote Syd Barrett in his lyrics for Pink Floyd's song Chapter 24, is the number of the young light. It forms when darkness is increased by 1. Minus the music, the bare poetry has the feel of a murmured alchemical fugue, and it's one of the touchstones for William Munch's creative process, in which, as Barrett wrote, things cannot be destroyed once and for all. In Munch's case, painting evolves through a mesh of subject matter and imagery which have informed his paintings over time. In 7 Leagues to Pompeii, his paintings included reference to Pompeii, the I Ching, the winter solstice, Palm Springs, Pliny the Elder, Frith the sun god in Richard Adams's Watership Down, Californian forest fires, and cinematic sources such as Michelangelo Antonioni's quasi-apocalyptic film endings and Stanley Kubrick's hyper-realities. In the Pompeii series, we encounter the
I love these
remains of
I want one if you want to buy me one for my birthday.
The canvases carry irregular intensities of detail, line, foreground and background. We know what the individual figurations represent, but we don't necessarily know why they're combined in the way they are, even though we occasionally see certain shapes or perspectives that reappear in his work. Painted in Munch's Brooklyn studio and during his time living in New York, These paintings have an apocalyptic subtext. He equates the ancient ruins with a potential alternate future for Palm Springs. I can't help imagining people visiting this utopia in hundreds of years' time and finding ash casts of the Rat Pack.
That's a beautiful painting.
Munch's enigmatic title and poetic play on words reflects the multiple readings and interpretations of Munch's complex mindscape paintings. Moving fluidly between ideas of reality and mirage, figuration and abstraction, Munch's reinvention of painting lies in the physical presence of his works as object and the viewer's experience within the space between them. Comprising large and small oil paintings, the exhibition primarily consisted of a suite of paintings titled Sea of Cloud, a yellow submarine-imbued zoetrope-like room that featured 3 paintings depicting a montage of what could be interpreted as a cloud forming and dissipating over a swelling sea. Munch intended this group of paintings to be read as a repeating montage that could be viewed on loop, a cinematic influence as well as a musical one. Each painting in the group is comprised of 2 adjoining panels, with the seam carefully placed at eye level so that the viewer will, as the artist says, feel they're in the water, looking up to the sky, across to the horizon, and below to the...
All right, we're stopping it right here because I want to get to Annette Lemieux. We're stopping it there. You can see this on your own, but I never like doing a program with all men or all women, and we need to go to the Annette Lemieux. She's the last. So in this show that's in New York right now, there are 3 different sections. So we're going to look at the sections. It's called the Ferryman. And this is hanging in the middle of the gallery. One side is one image, one is on the side, so they hang from the middle of the space. So that's the yellow is one side, the other is the other side. Let's look at those, but I want to concentrate, keep going down. That's not what I want to talk about. That's what I want to talk about. This painting, it's called East of Nowhere, oil on canvas. That to me is so beautiful. And it makes me think of California and looking out. I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you've all done that. You're used to this. So my son, I used to show at in San Francisco at John Bergruen and in LA at Krieger Landau. I showed for years in LA, and every dealer would take me out to look and Hollywood down. And this is Nowhere, it's called, but it's looking back. And it also makes me think of if you're Jewish and you've learned about what's his name's wife who turned around. I'm sorry, I'm losing it. And I went to Yeshiva. Lot's wife, looking back. There's something so powerful about looking back at a city. This is not a bad city. This is just looking at Nowhere. I find this such a spiritual feeling of looking at a city from far away. And I find it very profound. I also like, do you see his sky? You can see the marks in his painting. And this made me think of the Raku paintings. Look at, oh, thank you, you're the best. And then look at the way the paint is applied. He can paint anything he wants. So I love the way he goes in one direction and then another direction.
I do want to say the galleries have different, this is one of the best galleries because it's given us the ability to focus in on a painting.
Well, let me tell you something funny about Pace. Very often they don't show you all the work. When they had the Rauschenberg show, and I heard that Rauschenberg is now left and gone to another dealer, because in his show, you only were allowed to see 2 or 3 pieces. I think they've learned because some of their artists complained. This is new for them. They didn't always have this. So give them a compliment, but it's a new thing. Let's go to the next. By the way, you hear that noise? They're fixing the entranceway to my 2 gallery studios downstairs. Now we're going to go, we're ending here because I want to go to Annette Lemieux. Brilliant. You'll see this on your own. I'm scared you're going to leave me before, and I'm still over 100 people, so I don't want to blow it. No, we're not doing Andy Goldsworthy because we'll use him another time. I love him. I love him. I love him. But we're skipping that, and we're going to Annette Lemieux. Great, great artist. Brilliant show. They put up a new video, but this is the old one from the Hirshhorn, but it's 1 minute and 28 seconds. I think she's a great artist, and I want to end with her.
So here is my abandoned studio due to the virus. The work I'm working on, I think that might be called Norma. Drawn painting with no paint on it. This will probably be called Buster, or Busted rather, Busted. Here's my color-coded painting ready to go when this virus is over. Oh, and here's an old piece called Messenger Hanging Out.
Hey, Toby, you still there? Can you hear me, Toby? We can't, sorry, Toby, we can't hear you. Oh, have I not unshared? You have to unmute, Toby. Yes, I'm trying. I've asked you, you have to unmute. I don't know what happened, but you have to unmute. There you go.
So because of the noise during the video, I muted myself, and then you wouldn't let me come back, and now I'm here again. So now go to the gallery, and the gallery has a 3-minute amazing piece. I'm sorry about the noise. They're breaking through my wall. I told them to wait till 5. They just didn't listen to me. Go to the gallery.
Okay, hold on.
And I know we're running late. Please don't get mad at me. I want you to watch this, please, please. I'm a nice person. It's 1 minute and 25 seconds. It's a brilliant show.
Well, early on when I lived in New York, I traveled through books. So originally images came from books before the internet, I think, even existed. But now I look less into books and research more on the web and watch films and appropriate images from the films. It's sometimes hard to talk about the work because if I could say it, I wouldn't have made it. And I guess I'm looking for the poetry and the doom. Well, what happens in the world comes into my studio and affects the work. So it is a mirror. Yeah, I think it's important to seduce the viewer. I want the work to be visceral. Maybe that's my painting training. And the subjects can be difficult, so one has to seduce the viewer for the viewer to be able to look at it. Yeah, I use my own body as a measurement for the work. I like the portraits to be life-size. I want the clothing that's included to fit me. It only makes sense to fit me. Well, maybe all the works are sort of self-portraits.
So I feel so honored. Now we'll see the show. I feel so honored to show you this. I think she's one of the greatest living artists, man, woman, they, anything. I found her profound. I started seeing her work 30 years ago. She was well known, and then she went into obscurity. Now she's back in there with a vengeance. She was friendly with selected work, press selected works, and you can see it. It'll come large. So now let's look at them. Her work is all about, I'll show you one let's go to the next one. Broken Sky. I mean, I don't want to even say so much. I love what she says, that if I could say it, I would say it. And she wants to show it in imagery. Go to the next one. Buster Keaton is one of my favorite. This is beautiful too. Boots on the ground. Look at this. I don't even know what to say. I love Buster Keaton, and I love what it says, lockdown. And I'm sure you're all smart people. You understand what I mean. You know what? I'm not going to say a word. I want to, Ari, ask 5 people to say what they think it's about. I would love to hear from your very smart people who I am now loving.
Okay, people, you can put a chat in if you want to say what you think this is about. People have asked questions about. She's kind of taking other images and putting into. She's not. Did she repaint this?
No, she's a conceptual artist. She's a conceptual artist. It says pigment, inkjet on canvas, and bleached velvet. So she comprises, a very good question. She's what's called a conceptual artist. There are many like that. She's putting together ideas she has.
Okay, well, Tobi, Balma, did you have something you wanted to add? I thought Tobi had her arm up, but maybe it's, let's see, who had their hand up here? People aren't sharing in the chat.
All right, then I'll say something. It's about that many times people feel that they're imprisoned, either because of COVID or because of politics or because of the environment. She leaves it wide open. It's called lockdown. She says it's because of COVID, and she gave it away in the first film. That's why I thought you would, in the Herschel, and she says how she felt during COVID. Yes, race. It's very much about race. Yes, very good. Thank you. I knew it. That's great. Isolation. Now you guys are talking. I love you now. Give me one more. This is brilliant. Double back. Again, what does it mean? Oh, yes, Rob. It's about the flag. Somebody said that too. We are prisoners. And yes. But look at her work. I think she's so profound, very poetic, not easy to look at. Let's go to the next one. It's very funny. Come on, what is this about? We have a problem. Hello? The environment. The environment. She's saying, Houston, we have a problem. It's not about the space shuttle. It's about we're ruining our world. She's very, I hope you guys like her. If you don't like her, I'm sorry, but I picked her as my last artist of the day because I just admire her so much. And this is, again, brilliant. She goes through history and tries, by the way, she reminds me a lot of Joseph Cornell. I don't know if you guys know Joseph Cornell, but Joseph Cornell made those beautiful little boxes. She's playing with you. She's trying to teach you how to think. She's trying to say to you, these are all the problems in the world. Wake up and look at what's happening right now. Again, about being isolated. Oh, that's beautiful too. It's cinematic rescue. It's about all the things we're losing because of the environment. I want to talk to you for a few minutes, and I'm scared you're going to get off before I get to talk to you. And this is, again, a beautiful one. I just look at the rest of them, and then I want to get to you to hear you guys talking. That's the opening of her show. All right, now let's get to see everybody's faces. Am I over time? Am I in trouble already?
We have about 5 or 6 more minutes. So one question was, how do people find out? Yeah. How do people find out about when these gallery shows are happening? I mean, what is it? Do they read about it? Is it, I mean, in their own? I mean, this is New York. Obviously, we have LA.
Yeah, so what happens is, if you want to call me, so I get hundreds of emails a day. So there are people. I don't even want to say it. Certain people get emailed everything. You can get on lists of galleries, but there are many galleries that email me because they know I take people on tours. During COVID, all of a sudden, a lot of the big galleries in Europe have now started sending me their press releases. So before a show happens, let me see if I have anything here. I get a lot of postcards. I usually throw them out, but this is a show I loved, so I kept it. So you get stuff like this in the mail, but I get hundreds of emails from every gallery basically saying this show is coming up, that show is coming up. If you like a gallery, you can go to their website and it'll show you what's happening in Paris, what's happening in London, what's happening in LA, what's happening. So there's certain galleries that have satellites all over. Listen Gallery, Pace Gallery, David Zwirner, Hauser and Wirth, Lennon Maupin. They're like 10 or 15 big galleries, Seoul, Korea. How do you do it? How do you manage all that email? Sharon, I don't look, you can ask Ari, I don't go online more than twice a day. I'm not interested. Sharon knows my taste. We sometimes have arguments because I don't like some of the stuff that she likes. And she sometimes tries to get me to look at it and I don't. So I know what I like already. There may be, I say I have 10 favorite artists. There are 300 artists in my 10 favorite artists.
So, I wish what we could do is I'd like to see a vote, like each time we do a gallery talk, who is the people's favorite artist? Because
I would love that too.
It'd be nice to see. So maybe I'll send out something for the first 2 gallery talks. People can vote and we'll see what people like the most. And that'll be interesting. Last question really for the day, because we're out of time. I know Tally has a question.
I want to throw in one more. We can't throw. All right, forget it. I'm sorry.
Well,
I love Andy Goldsworthy, but I was too scared. I wanted you to see Annette Lemieux more than Andy Goldsworthy.
Yeah, but it's just we're out of time. And I have another meeting, unfortunately, at 2:00, so I can't hang out even more. But one question that came up with is kind of your thoughts on the fact that all this great art is out there. It's in the gallery, so you get to see it one time, then it gets purchased. And unless it gets purchased by a museum, you're never going to see it until the family who purchased it, if they have a collection, passes away or gives a collection to a museum. So what's your thought about this whole process of art, that if you want to see it, we have to basically go with you? I mean, now what's nice is that you can see it online. And I don't know how long these last online. I assume they don't necessarily keep them there. But these art, if you want to see a piece of art, you have a limited period of time, 4 weeks to see it, and then you may never see it again in your lifetime. Because it's not going to museums, it's going to some private collection.
Well,
what's your thought on that?
That's not true. First of all, that's not true. What happens is every artist has a moment in time. That's a fact. It used to be terrible for women. It used to be terrible for people of color. Now, for this 5 minutes, women are still not getting what they deserve because they're over 50% of the world, and they're not in over 50% of museums. But what happens is, first of all, museums have great collections, and this artist, meaning me, if I know a museum is interested in my work, I'll give them first dibs. And if you saw my show at the Phillips, they own 7 great works of mine from when I was a student until now. Yale University, Minneapolis Museum. There are many museums that have been buying more than one of my works, and every artist will tell you, you want to get into collections that you're not in the basement. And what does that mean? It doesn't help you if a museum buys you if it's not up on the wall. I'd rather be in a private collector who puts my work in their house than in a museum in their basement. So most art, if an artist has a lot of work, you try and place your work in different places. Why do artists want to go with certain major collectors? There's certain major collectors that have 5 homes. All the work is on their walls. They have something called private museums. And why do they do private museums? Because then they don't have to pay tax. And I don't know if you know any of them, the Rubels. In fact, in California, there are quite a few great, what's his name? I'm going to take you to his museum. I love his museum. What is that museum, Ari, that I told you I love so much? It's his collection.
The Broad?
The Broad. Broad built a museum for his collection, and he bought them all for himself. You might not like all the work he bought, but he loves it all. It wasn't some advisor. He loved that work. And so there are a lot of people. What's his name? The gallery, the Phillips. That's a guy, Mr. Phillips. Duncan Phillips loved all this work. The Frick Museum. He loved all that work. in Washington, the Barnes Collection, the Hirshhorn. I can name you tons of museums where the person loved their work. The museums didn't want to buy what they liked, so they built their own museum. So that is heaven. And then the Vogels, that Postman and his wife, they bought a massive collection and then they donated it to 50-something museums around the world. So I don't like when art goes into a vault. I find that creepy. But everything else, thank God that artists can make a living and sell art. I think it's great.
So tomorrow is the beginning of a 3-part like kind of chat session with you, Tobi. And the topic I think is what did I write down here? Sacred spaces. It was sacred space, sacred time, sacred objects. And tomorrow is sacred space. And we're going to focus on each Friday, like a 45-minute chat on a specific topic, like a sacred space, as you mentioned.
But Ari had asked me to show my work. I don't like just showing my work. So I showed my work with 2 other artists. We picked work that I'm very involved with, but I will never just talk about myself because I find that chutzpahdik. And so I'm showing you one very famous artist whose name is James Turrell, one of my favorite artists whose name is Spalletti. I don't know if any of you know Spalletti. You know, do me a favor. I want to see if anyone, I love Spalletti. I think Spalletti is a great artist and he was married to a great architect. So they did work together. But I think Spalletti is underknown. I'm always going to try and show you very famous, underknown, and then I'll be in there too, because I do that type of work.
And then last question goes to Rona, because Rona asked about the art we just saw from Annette. How can she appropriate other images to put into her art? I mean, aren't there, like, what are the rules, regulations? Are these old images out of copyright? How do you do that?
Excellent question. If it's in public domain, you can do whatever you want. You are allowed to use images that are public domain. And if it's not about the image, in other words, she is taking that image and 1 second. Nehemiah, I'm teaching. I'll be there with you in 2 minutes. I'll call you back. That is the curator of the museum in Washington. And I told him would be finished then, but I'm going to call him back. But it's allowed to be, if it's public arena, you're allowed to do it.
So she's using, okay, what's in the public sphere. So the last thing I want to mention is on Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific, it's the first of a 3-part series in our main stage entitled, this one is entitled, What Makes Contemporary Art Compelling and Singular? So basically we have a month of conversations and all these programs interact, intertwine. I'm sure what we discussed today will come up again on Sunday in different ways, and I invite everybody to come back. I appreciate everyone staying with us for a little later today. I would say even a little longer, but we'll have to see. That the artist that we missed today was Andy Goldsworthy, but it looks like he's environmental art.
We're going to do him in LA. When I come there, we're doing an Andy Goldsworthy type of work, and I want everyone to join. I do that for the program in Kivunim in Israel every year, and everyone loves it. It's about looking at nature and not ruining nature and adding to the dialogue of nature.
And remember, I will send it to you again, but I sent you all in the chat, all information of all the galleries and videos that we saw. So you can, at your own time, go through them. And then maybe we'll do a vote, just not because you're right about which is the best artist.
I would like to see if there's,
I'd like to see which ones. I know who my favorites are. So with that, I do have to run. Sorry, I have a very important call coming up in 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Tobi. We'll see you tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, very early. Thank you, everybody. Take care.